our next Daily Viewpoint, don't call your daughter bossy. That is the message of a new public service campaign launched by none other, Sheryl Sandberg and the Girl Scouts. Now, Sandberg is the COO of Facebook, and you remember last year her book, Lean In, sparked a national conversation about women and leadership. And Sandberg's new project aims to help increase young girls' confidence by avoiding the use of negative words like bossy to describe leadership traits in women. Now, studies show that by the age 11, girls have gone through a dramatic reduction in self-esteem compared to boys. So we need to talk about this. I think it, you know...
I'm sorry, Rizzy.
But first you've got to stop reading.
I'm reading Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. I thought we needed to bring this book in to show Bossy Pants. I mean, is bossy really that bad a word?
It is when you're a little girl, I suppose.
So, yeah.
So that's a funny take on it.
It is a funny, funny book, yeah. She tells a story about how girls are supposed to be really assertive. Like, they were sitting around the Saturday Night Live table, and it was very loud and raucous, like it always is. All the comedians writing the story, and Amy Poehler did something that was loud and obnoxious and unladylike. And Jimmy Fallon said, "Stop doing that. It's not nice. I don't like it." And she says, "Look, buddy, I'm not here to please you. I'm not here to be anybody's girlfriend or play the wife on some of these skits. I'm here to do what I want, and I'm going to do what I want. You don't have to like it."
Right.
And I bet it was a room full of mostly men.
Yeah, sure it was. But, oh, Tina Fey was there, and she said, "I have met my friend." So it was really, yeah. So, yeah.
I think it is very cool that Sheryl Sandberg is taking this step to say to women, you know, don't be shy, assert yourself, and don't be fearful that you're going to be called bossy or the other B word.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of women in leadership, they face the other B word, and you have to really groom these young women. Now, she says, she tells her 6-year-old who's very shy, you've got to raise your hand, raise it once a week, just to try to get her, you know, to come out of the shell.
In class.
In class. And she also makes her order her own food when she takes her to the restaurant.
That's a good one.
There are little steps you can take with your young girls to make them assert themselves more.
I think a lot of young girls are raised with filters. Their mothers say, don't say this, don't say that. Their fathers also, their school teachers, you name it, up the ranks. I fortunately was raised by civil rights leaders, migrant rights leaders, so we had no filters. I never was afraid to speak up, was never afraid to say what I thought, because I saw my parents do it all the time.
Sure.
But what I also realized was people that I worked with in a newsroom, a lot of news people fear speaking up, even though we're supposed to be the ones that are the voice for everybody else. So I think
because most of the men are running the industry. Oh, totally. So when your boss is a man, you don't want to appear to be too outspoken, even though you're a reporter.
Oh, gosh.
You know?
I remember at Fox 4 when, you know, the women would be a little assertive, and the male managers were like, whoa. But then the males would come in, like, I don't know, Sean Rad, and they would be like, "Oh, that's great, buddy. That's great, buddy." And it was like, wow. I would sit back going, wow. Because he can say, "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" Maybe it was a whole different treatment. I mean, it happens in the newsroom. It's the truth. And I just found it interesting that, you know, we do need to speak up. We need not to fear anything. We need to use our voice. And I'm glad that Ms. Sandberg is teaching these Girl Scouts, hey, you know what? It's okay.
It's
use your
okay.
voice.
Absolutely. And yeah.
Maybe the problem is that you don't want the girls to go from bossy to bully, because there are a lot of girls who are bullies, and we don't like that at all. We don't want that to happen.
There is a fine line.
Yes.
She even talked about, too, with minorities, that that young African-American women have to be cautious of being called an angry black female, and that Hispanic women had to be cautious not to be too emotional or hot-headed. And so there's a lot of these different things, but what was most important is, as a parent, she said, you've got to mimic what you want your daughter to be like. So you've got to have that assertiveness at home, and you've got to do it correctly so that they don't face those other stereotypes.
But I think we also educate men, and especially women of color, that, hey, you know what? Not every Latina is feisty, or not every African-American woman has this militant attitude. And I think that we educate men in that area, because I have also had news managers who are like, oh, you know, Latinas, you're so hot-headed. And it was like, whoa, 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 wait a minute.
It's like, wait a minute.
You know what? I mean, would you say that to a white female?
Sure.
Right. So I think I mean, all of us as women have to educate, especially men, because they have this stereotype of us. And I hate to admit it, but in some of these shows, like I'll watch Survivor, and they have the African-American woman who's all out there, and I think that the producers have a way to make it appear that way. Even some of the women of color will come out and go, you know what, they made me look like a nut job, and I wasn't a nut job.
Yeah, I think if you're sitting down with your children, you explain to them, you know, this right here is probably a little bit of acting, but this is what you should be doing in the real world. And I think it's also important if you have a little boy and a little girl that you encourage them both to be leaders. You encourage them both to, you know, participate in these extracurricular activities, because she was talking about in her book that she wrote in Lean In that you have a tendency to push your boys, really push your boys to be involved and to, you know, do this and to speak up and be tough, but you don't do the same thing with your girls. So they're getting a mixed message.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Even in my house, because I come from a huge family, 7 brothers and sisters,
oh, wow.
and the boys were going to go to college, but the girls were not going to go to college because they would just grow up and get married anyway, so you don't need a college education for that. And that came from my parents, who were mostly very enlightened, except for that, and I never could understand
it was just
that.
old school.
Yeah,
I
old
think
school.
I think it was just during that time that was what was expected. You know, women are supposed to go to college and meet their husbands and not go to college to make sure you're getting your A's and you're participating in, you know, political organizations or whatever, you know, you may be interested in. But you know, some people need to not even tell their girls that. You're just going to college to find your husband.
So I guess
find
what
your dream.
Excuse me.
Oh,
what we're talking about here is the word bossy. We don't like the word bossy, but we do like the word leaders and assertive and that kind of thing. We don't like the word bully. Is bossy kind of like bully? I don't even see a bad thing about bossy. You know, you call me bossy, okay, fine.
Well, what's unfair is a man with the same attitude who's take charge. Because to me, being bossy, you kind of take charge and you probably delegate. That man is called an efficient leader.
Yeah, and what are the women called? The B word.
The B word, or she's too bossy, or she...
You know what, and I also think you brought up the younger generation, young boys. I know my 17-year-old looks at young girls and thinks, Mom, man, she is not afraid to speak up. And I think they appreciate that. Again, different generations, they're going to learn from our mistakes, our stereotypes, our fears, and hopefully be able to not only treat young girls as equals, but as a fair plane for everybody.
Or treat a girl like you have a voice, and I want to hear it. Instead of, you know, I think you have to teach your sons, it's okay to date a woman who knows what she wants and who speaks out. Yeah. That sometimes people raise their sons, oh, you just want the quiet type. She's too loud.
Yeah. The one that will be your slave.
Yeah, and I don't want little girls to feel that they can't be assertive. Like I saw the interview with whoever did the story, and the little girl was saying, well, I don't know if I want to be a leader, because sometimes if you're a leader, people don't like you.
Oh,
and you don't even want a girl to think people won't like you. That has nothing to do with it, you know. Yeah. So it's got to be good training, and it's got to be balanced.
Yes.
Okay, so is bossy good, bad?
I think bossy can be good.
I don't care.
So too.
Yes.
It's fine with me.
Me too.
I think that's how the woman defines bossy.
So if someone would say, hey, you're too bossy, what would you say?
I would say that's okay. Just do what I say.
Yeah, that's right. Or how she defines herself. Yeah, that's important too.
I got to be bossy now and toss to break. Okay, we'll be right back.